Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty Roundtable Radio Talk Show.
All right. Happy to have you along, my fellow Americans. Sam Bushman live on your radio. Hard-hitting news the networks refuse to use, no doubt, starts now. This, my fellow Americans, is the broadcast for April the 2nd in the year of our Lord, 2025. This is our one of two, the goal always to protect life, liberty, and property, to promote God, family, and country, and the traditions of our founding fathers, using the supreme law of the land, including all the checks and balances that made America great. We can do it again if we, the people, insist on it and use the incredible, detailed guidelines at our fingertips put in place by our founding fathers. As you know, we reject revolution, unless it's a Jesus revolution. Then we're in because we follow the Prince of Peace. Incredible 2 hours coming up. James Edwards with me, thepoliticalcesspool.org. Welcome back, sir.
It's great to be back, Sam, and it's always great to struggle with. You know, there's a lot of Bible verses about the good that can come through struggle and trials and how those things can be beneficial to us. And thankfully, we've never known another life.
You got that right. There's so much to focus on and so little time. I don't even know where to start. Let me just throw out a couple of random things that I'm seeing in the news and get your take on a couple of them, because wow, it's just a target-rich environment, to say the least. First one, Southern California. All right, April 1, a new tax went into effect for those guys. Southern California now has the highest sales tax in the nation, 11.25%, James. Do you want to just respond to that coming out of the gate?
Well, I am excited to hear that, Sam, because up until this, Tennessee had the highest sales tax in the nation at just under 10%. Now, we don't have an income tax. We don't have a state income tax, so that certainly more than levels it out, because at least the sales tax is a consumption tax. You can choose what to buy in many cases, unless it's something like gas or groceries or the essentials. But so yeah, I mean, I have lived under a state that has a very high sales tax, but of course California still has the oppressive state income tax along with the federal income tax, and now the highest
with the
sales
tax through the roof.
Oh yeah. Oh man, I mean, imagine living in well, that's why, of course, the property values throughout the red states are skyrocketing so much. I mean, you could sell $1 million fishing shanty in California and move to a place like Tennessee with much better politics and get a $500,000 McMansion and still have $500,000 in the bank. And a lot of people are doing that, and it's driving costs way up in the South and in the other red states. But
yeah, you move from Oakland, California to Oakland, Tennessee, and it gets a lot better in a hurry, huh?
Oh, I've never lived in California. I've been there. But I would imagine that the people, and again, you're going to see something. You're going to see at the next, I've mentioned this in passing on your show before, but you're going to see when they have the next census, which I think is in 2028, 2030, coming up in a few years. I think you're going to see, if the Republicans can make it out of the midterms, the Democrats may never win again. I mean that. People are not talking about this yet, and they're not looking at this yet. Hold on.
But it wasn't but a couple of years ago you guys were saying, hey, it's curtains with all the illegals coming in. The Republicans will never win an election again. Right?
Well, that was true. That was true in so much as nobody predicted that there would be an exodus from these hundreds of thousands.
Neither are really true, though. The Democrat Party and the Republican Party, they're going to be around forever unless it morphs into a third party. Which really ends up becoming a second party over time. The Republican Party used to be a third party, for instance. So people think third parties never work. They don't work long term, but they do work to eventually displace a party. We might see the Democrat Party get displaced by a merger of something else. So we might, look, they've got too much money to die on the vine. They're starting to come back right now. Right.
Well, the media certainly positioned it as that. We'll talk about that in just about 30 seconds. I was just going to say, though, I do think that there is a path forward where you just see them become a regional party on the coast. There is a very clear path for that. Now, that's not to say that the Republicans keep winning. You know, is that good for us? Now, that's a totally different question and very much debatable. I mean, right now it looks good. The last couple of months have looked very good, but who's to say that they'll continue to go in that direction and things like that? But no, I think you're going to see these electoral votes in the red states go up as a result of all this exodus, and it's a very likely scenario that could be the case. But yeah, I saw. So there were some special elections last night.
Yeah,
And
we
I don't know if a
lost
lot of
big,
people were
right?
following that. Well, I mean, there was a statewide race in Wisconsin that the Democrats won, but I was reading one article that, I mean,
And in
this
Florida,
was,
we won, right?
well, this was, yeah, to the extent that we are the Republicans, but and the media, even after all these years of following their tricks, they actually pulled one over on me with this headline. It said Democratic candidate flips county won by Trump, and it was talking about a congressional race, and I was like, wow, so the Democrats flipped a seat in Florida? And I clicked on the article, and oh, well, they flipped this one county in this one district, but they still lost by like 15 points in the race. So it was like a little
Yeah, but
sleight
that's
of
how
hand.
you write the headline. You just lie, and if you don't dig in, you don't know, and that's kind of the problem we're facing, right?
Had a picture of this Democratic candidate. Her name was actually Gay. Her name is Gay. So, I mean, that's just as fitting as it could possibly get. But shows her looking all happy.
In this case, from what we understand, though.
That's right. That's right. Now, that's not to say she might not be happy, but she's not a lesbian as best I know. But it reads. You read the headline. It looks like the Democrats flipped a congressional seat in Florida, which would be pretty shocking considering that Trump routed Florida. It was like the deepest red state in the country, just about. But that wasn't the case. It was an outlier county, that one county in the entire district that she did better in than Biden did, and still lost substantially. But the race for the Supreme Court seat in Wisconsin was interesting because that is a statewide race, and they tried to position it as a referendum on Trump and Musk. But, I mean, you can read the tea leaves through all of these things. I wouldn't worry about it too much because of the thing I just told you. I think the future, if they can get through these midterms, I think the future looks good for the Republicans unless they morph back in to their former self, this neocon Democratic light type party. And then, of course, anything could happen.
Yeah. So anyway, very interesting. To me, hey, they got the highest sales tax in the nation. I think it's out of control, 11.5 or 11.25%. I don't think that the government ever ought to take. I don't think the government ought to ever take more than the churches. The churches take 10% tithing, and I don't think anybody ought to get more than God gets. But that's just my opinion. But I look at this, and I'm more for a sales tax than I am for a property tax or an income tax or some of those kind of taxes. I personally would prefer apportionment taxes or tariffs at the border. What I see, though, is governments from all sides are just adding insult to injury. They say they don't want the economy to fall into a recession, but the Fed's not reducing the interest rates. They say inflation's high. But when you start to increase taxes everywhere, so if you're in California and you have property tax and sales tax and income tax and tariffs up the wazoo, and I'm telling you, they're going to push this thing into the abyss if we're not very careful. And I don't see anybody providing any relief at any portion of the tax-paying racket. James?
Well, it's a trickle-down effect, too. The dominoes, as I just mentioned, are falling because you have not only the horrible politics from the COVID era that caused so many people to move out, conservatives living in blue states that they were never going to be competitive in, electorally speaking, just fleeing like the Egyptian times, the Exodus in the Bible. And then you've got these taxes. So, yeah, I mean, people, the word is out. You can move to a state with a much more affordable standard of living, and you'll be rich. I mean, you can sell. Have you seen what some of these? I'm talking about outright dump shacks in places like L.A. I mean, not everything in L.A. is beautiful, movie star mansion. I mean, there are normal run of the mill, run down houses, and these things are going for $1 and $2 million. I mean, and they are awful looking houses.
Oh yeah, it's out of control, buddy.
And but you'd sell
we
that.
wouldn't want to live in any of that. But hey, if you love New York or you love L.A. or you love some of these places, you're gonna live in those kind of tiny,
but
horrible shacks for a ton of money, right?
If you don't love it, though, you as I said before, you sell that, you come here, you get a brand new, never been lived in turnkey house, bigger than your wildest dreams, and you're going to have hundreds of thousands of dollars in the bank in a way that Southerners do not, and or red state, middle class conservatives do not, and you're just going to live like a prince. So, and a lot of people are doing that. So it's not entirely good. It's good for those individuals, but leave their politics there. But they are driving up our cost of living from Utah to Tennessee and beyond. But
you're right about that. They're fleeing. What they want to do, though, is they want to flee here, take advantage of our benefits, whether it be Utah, Idaho, Tennessee, Texas, wherever. They want to take a part in the red state success. At the same time, they want to bring their politics with them, and so
sometimes
it won't be very long, right?
Well, that is the concern. I mean, obviously, a lot of these people that are leaving are, at least nominally conservative. Now, there's a difference between a California conservative and a Mississippi conservative, I can assure you. And by the way, speaking of taxes, just a very quick aside, I just found out this weekend that the state of Mississippi did away with its state income tax, joining now Texas, Florida, and Tennessee as a southern state that doesn't have an income tax. But so that's good.
Hey, man.
I hear music.
I reject income tax and property taxes.
Sure.
Go ahead and skip the break.
Well, you got me on to something now. Oh, I hate this, Sam, because I know you were in real estate. But every year, I mean, this is the biggest racket. One of the not the biggest, man. There's a lot. There's bigger. There's a lot of rackets out there that we suffer under. I mean, these taxes are one, and just everything. But every year, I refinanced when the interest rates were like zero during COVID. I actually was signing a document with the notary, getting it notarized while Biden was being inaugurated. So I'll never forget that. It was like on TV while I was signing this refinance thing because it dropped my interest rate down to like, something ridiculously low compared to what they are now. And that saved us, $200 or $300 a month on our monthly mortgage. So that's a substantial savings per month. And then you extrapolate that by the year, you're talking about, low-level thousands of dollars. But all of that has been gobbled back up and then some. In the last 5 years, now I'm paying more now on my mortgage than I did 5 years ago when I refinanced it down to like 2.9% because the insurance goes up every single year. So they keep saying, well, your house is worth so much more. You're so lucky you have this equity. But then, I can't do anything with it because if I sold and pocketed the equity, I'm going to be having to trade down in house because the property values are so high.
I moved to Mexico, right?
But now, I mean, something because, you can't move far enough now to find a house that would be comparable.
That's right.
You'd be trading down. But anyway, the point is my monthly note now is higher than it ever was, even with the $300+ I was saving for a month because they keep eating it up in, the insurance company. They keep tacking on that insurance.
Yeah, my insurance was basically $500 last year, and this year they say it's about $750.
See,
So
that's ridiculous.
33%. And I said, how come? I said, I haven't had a single claim. They said, well, people all around you are making all kinds of claims. We've never had so many claims. Turns out what happens is if a couple of shingles fall off somebody's roof, then they want to get their whole roof replaced. And so then there's fraudulent companies that file all the paperwork and push it through, and they're trying to stop it now. And I said, I didn't do any of those things. And I don't have a claim. Why are you including me in that? And the guy's just like, I don't know what to say. That's just what the new quote is. And I said, well, I want you to look around and see what other options there are. Everybody else is even more expensive than that. $1,000, $1,500, to where it's like, you know what? You won't even be able to afford to insure your house if you're not very careful. So this is what I mean by the American people are getting beat up on every turn. Inflation, prices, eggs, insurance, cars. And Donald loves the tariff, and I do too. But not if we're going to add it on top of the current tax burden we're already dealing with. And Americans haven't seen any relief whatsoever. So let me get this right. It's April 1. How long is that for Congress? Basically all of January, all of February, all of March. They've literally had 90 days for the Republicans in Congress. Now, the president's had, from the 20th, January 20th, February, March 20th. He's had, 10 weeks, whatever you want to call it, 3 months for that. What have they done for you? Is there a single thing that you can say, hey, because Congress and Donald Trump are in place, things are better for me? The only thing you can say is there's a few less rapists on the streets, probably. Other than that, I don't see anything big.
Well, I'll tell you this. Fundamentally, listen, the immigration issue is fundamental. I mean, that's a big one. But fundamentally, where it really hits people in everyday living is the cost of living. And I'll tell you this very quickly. I don't want to make your audience jealous, but there's a lady across the street that has a chicken coop.
Yeah.
And we are rich in eggs. It produces enough eggs to feed her and her husband, and then she gives all the extras to us. And so we've always got a big bucket full of eggs or a basket full of eggs in the
You got to make
in the
egg
fridge.
salad sandwiches or omelets or something. Use a bunch of those babies.
And they're good and they're fresh. And we walk across the street, holding him with cupped hands as if it's like the Holy Grail because they're all worth their weight in gold. But that's one cost we've been able to save on is eggs. But I was having dinner with I have a 15-year-old daughter, and we went out to eat last night, my wife and I, with one of her friends and her friend's parents. Okay, so if that makes sense. So it was me and my wife and her friend's parents and my daughter and her friend. And we were talking about, when we first got married, and they're obviously the same age as us because our daughters are the same age. They're near our age. And so we had, very similar experiences, meeting, getting married, buying houses at certain price points. And it's just, we're talking about how crazy it was because it wasn't that long ago. I bought my first house. I got married in 2006, and we rented a house. And then we bought our first house in 2010, and we were just talking about it's a very nice house, very clean. It had been renovated and, new fixtures and appliances. And we talked about the price we bought that at and what prices are now. And just talking about, hey, if we ever even sold, we'd never be able to get a house anywhere near what it is now because we're not going to be approved for anymore. And everything's just so ridiculously expensive. And the interest rates are so much, actually, you'll be approved for less. Exactly. And then we just said, because, our daughters are 15. So in a few years, they're going to be getting out and talking about getting married or whatever. And I said, there is no way. I see no way. And this is to your point, Sam. And this is where the American people really need relief. There is no way whatsoever for a young couple to buy a house right now at all, unless you're some trust fund baby or you're walking into some silk stocking law firm or you've got something set up for you. But in terms of working your way up the employment ladder and going from job to job as you work your way up.
You save even if you work hard, save 20% down. Homes just went up 20%, so you don't have that either. Look, the hidden tax of inflation's out of control. We said we were going to go ahead and, check out Fort Knox, see if the gold's there. We've got a record pace of banks basically transferring gold back to the United States. We don't know why that's happening. We're not looking into Fort Knox from what I understand. No one's really talking about it anymore. It was a flash in the pan. We're going to add these tariffs everywhere, tariffs on cars, tariffs on this, on that. But there's zero relief, and I don't see anything in play to do so. I was hoping that abolished the IRS. Because they said, hey, we're going to do it at an external IRS, in other words, tariffs. We're going to abolish the internal IRS. I don't see anything on that front. Now Trump's coming back and saying, hey, they worked out a deal. If somehow they can balance the budget, then they'll go ahead and, Americans under $150,000 a year won't pay, taxes. The problem with that is, hey, $150,000 a year doesn't do what it used to do anymore, folks. Look, it used to be that a silver dollar was 1 ounce of silver. Now a silver dollar is like $35. And so what that means is your dollar, your fiat paper dollar, has decreased 35 times in value. And you look at that and you go, copper is like worth $5 an ounce. Copper's, you can't even, you used to be able to have a dollar equal silver. Now a dollar doesn't even equal copper, for heck's sakes. And so, they've robbed us through this hidden tax called inflation. And I don't see anywhere any relief for any of us. And I'm basically telling you that if they don't get this together fast, because they've just pushed through the massive budget, gave themselves 6 more months with just out of control spending. Now they're stuck. The Democrats and the Republicans are voting together against Mike Johnson and crew. He's losing big. If we're not very careful, there's going to be no relief. And if they don't do it soon, I'm telling you right now, they're going to lose the midterm elections.
Well, here's the problem. Well, people vote with their pocket more than any other issue. We all, we're political junkies, so we talk about all the issues. But most people are just going to vote their bottom line, and that was a big problem for Biden with all the inflation and $70 to feed a family of 4 Chick-fil-A or whatever is going on now. But I'm telling you, you've got a big problem if you can't sell a house on the East Coast or the West Coast where you're selling these very expensive houses and then coming down here. But I'm telling you, for them, selling $1 million house and buying a $500,000 house and having a few $100,000 left in your pocket is a great deal. But for us, when the home prices go from, on average, say $200 to $250 to $500, you can't keep up because we don't have a house to sell that is going to give us that money. We, are making house purchases through our work and things like that, and everybody's priced out down here. So again, it's going to be a big problem for the up and coming generation, and I'm sure it has been already for the last several years, but it's getting worse every day. I mean, every time I click Zillow and refresh it, it's like, oh wow, the house went up another $10,000. So they say, it's all funny money, of course, but
they call that house poor, don't they? I mean, look, and I'm not trying to be negative. I'm just saying I'd like to move somewhere because I live in a house right now where I've got a bunch of stairs and I've got a bunch of bedrooms. It was great when I was raising all my little kids. We raised 8 children in one small house. So, I get all that. But now I want to move to a house where I've got less stairs because I'm getting older. And I want to move to a scenario where I've got single floor living. So I don't want stairs. And I also want a lot bigger, living space and less bedrooms. But the problem is I can't dream of moving. I will trade my interest rate, which is, I can't remember what it is, 2.75 or something like that, to instantly over doubling my interest rate. And, it doesn't make any sense. So people are stuck. But let me ask you this. What answers do you think are on the horizon for this? Anything? I don't see a single thing they're working on that could possibly make this better anytime soon.
You got a lot of problems. I mean, we've talked about all the things that the Trump administration has done that we like on certain issues like, DOGE and U.S. I mean, we could go forever. I mean, we've been talking about it for months now. You'd never be able to give a quick recap. But, I mean, one of the big ones is going to be, can Americans afford to live? Can Americans afford to find housing? And can Americans afford to eat? And right now, there's just no way.
I mean, let's say DOGE is saving billions. The media's out there telling you, hey, Elon's saving billions. Then others say, no, he's not. And others say it's fake. And then they pull back. And then they this and then they that. I don't even know. Musk says they've got these magic money machines that just print money, 14 of them. And, Ted Cruz goes, oh, my gosh, can that really be? Look, they've been fleecing us for over 100 years, as I just proved with the dollar tanking. Used to be worth 1 ounce of silver. Now it takes $35 to get a single ounce of silver. Silver's held its value. Our fiat dollar has absolutely failed as inflation has destroyed the American dream. But I look at this and I go, I don't know that it's going to get any better. There's nothing on the horizon that I can see. So I appreciate them saving billions at DOGE. But I wake up tomorrow and nothing's changed for me except costs are up at every turn. And I'm telling you right now, unless they change that in some way or make a significant dent in it, they will lose the next election cycle. People are just going to say, look, it's no better under the Donald than it is. Yeah, there's a lot of crazy stuff in the media, but none of it comes down to my household. James, none of it, really.
They could say that as far as so far the cost of living. I mean, it hasn't gotten any cheaper at Captain D's or McDonald's or anything else. And we just talked about the housing market. I don't know though for sure, Sam. I don't know if I agree that the Republicans will lose because with the Democrats you're going to get just as bad standard of living plus all the woke stuff. So
you're talking about facts though. They don't vote based on facts. They just say give the other guys a chance. What we're doing is not working.
Well. There you go. Well, if they think about it the way I thought about it, or if they think about it the way you're saying they'll think about it, that's going to be the difference. But I guess we'll find out because, they're going to start running for these midterms pretty soon. It's a constant election cycle in the United States.
Yeah, which is another thing that needs to be stopped and rejected. By the way, speaking of that, Mike Lindell is in the news, James. You know Mike Lindell, the pillow guy, right?
I know his one of his top assistants very well. Lauren Witzke works for Mike Lindell now.
Anyway, Mike Lindell, quote, should I run for governor of Minnesota?
Wow. Well, I wish it was any other state almost. I mean, Minnesota's going to be a tough nut to crack. But
there's no question. But there you have it. So anyway, Mike Lindell's thinking about running for governor. That's a very interesting twist. Vivek Ramaswamy bailed from DOGE, and he's running for governor of where's he at? Michigan?
Ohio.
Ohio. So that's interesting. The next headline is very interesting. Trump suggests Elon Musk may leave DOGE. What do you say to that?
I had not heard that yet, actually. I mean, when you're talking about a guy that's that all over the place in terms of his interests, it's hard to imagine him working any job diligently for years on. If he does leave, I hope they continue to do the things that they're promised that
Vivek and Musk would run DOGE and they'd run it through, summer 2026, and then their job would be done. You had Vivek kind of bail before it even started, and now you got Elon bailing. How much is DOGE really going to get done in the end of the day? Blocked by judges, literally shut down by all kinds of security people, brought a lot of truth to the table, but one thing is bringing truth to the table for understanding. Another one is taking action and prosecuting criminals. I don't see any of it. Hang tight.
Proclaiming liberty across the land. You're listening to Liberty News Radio.
Breaking news this hour from townhall.com. I'm Rich Thomason. Looks like New York City Mayor Eric Adams is off the hook. A judge granting a Justice Department request to dismiss corruption charges against Adams. The charges were brought during the Biden administration, prompting some Adams supporters to claim they amounted to political retribution after the mayor questioned Biden immigration policy. Adams denied any wrongdoing. President Trump declares this Liberation Day, the day he'll be announcing sweeping trade tariffs.
During a Rose Garden ceremony, the president will impose reciprocal tariffs to match the duties that other countries charge on U.S. products.
We've been ripped off by every country in the world, friend and foe.
Ahead of this afternoon's announcement, financial markets have been jittery and many Americans have rushed to buy products they fear will rise in cost as a result of the import taxes. Greg Clugston, the White House.
The Wisconsin Supreme Court preserves its liberal majority as a result of yesterday's election.
Susan Crawford, a Dane County judge backed by Democrats, defeated Brad Schimmel, a former state attorney general endorsed by President Trump and backed by Elon Musk and groups he funded with more than $21 million. Crawford noted in remarks to supporters.
Justice does not have a price. Our courts are not for sale.
Crawford herself drew support from billionaire megadonor George Soros and other Democrats. Sound courtesy WKOW. I'm Ben Thomas.
Also in Wisconsin, a ballot initiative requiring voter ID has been approved. And in Florida, Republicans have won 2 special congressional elections. Tesla sales fell in the first 3 months of the year. The company reports deliveries of its electric vehicles dropped 13% January through March. Stocks in the red this morning on Wall Street. The Dow is down about 130 points. The Nasdaq off 31. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Hey everybody, Charlie Kirk here. As executive director of Turning Point USA, a national radio host, podcaster, husband, and father of 2, my schedule is about as crazy as it can possibly get. 2 years ago, I made the decision to take control of my health, and I chose PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition because I needed a plan that fit my hectic lifestyle. I travel a lot, and my schedule changes every week, so I need something simple. They customized a plan for my body and my schedule, and I quickly lost 30 pounds. Now I have the energy and focus to get through my busy day. PhD will help you too. They won't let you fail. Just give them a call, schedule your weight loss consultation, and see if their program is right for you. Call 855-696-2020. That's 855-696-2020. The first 11 callers who mention the word healthy will get 2 weeks added to their weight loss package. Call 855-696-2020 and mention the word healthy, or visit them at myphdweightloss.com. That is myphdweightloss.com. It worked for me, and it can work for you. myphdweightloss.com.
Have you ever had great honey? No, I mean really good, all-natural, raw honey? Well, now you can, thanks to localhoneyman.com. We can ship out our locally made honey all across the U.S. So don't worry, you won't miss out. Plus, Local Honeyman has so many different flavors, like Utah Wildflower, High Desert Delight, Happy Valley, and Blackberry, just to name a few. So purchase your delicious raw honey today at localhoneyman.com.
Do you treasure your liberty? Well, at lovingliberty.net, we most certainly do. And we want to help protect your liberty too. Become part of the family. Everyone knows that the core of any society is the family. Therefore, the government should foster and protect the integrity of its family, we the people. Won't you join us as a Loving Liberty sponsor to help us promote the principles in the 5,000-year leap? Let's restore the miracle that changed the world at lovingliberty.net.
Mr. President,
Senator from Kentucky.
Reserving the right to object. I lived for 4 months in Asheville, worked at the VA hospital, still have fond feelings for Western North Carolina. But the thing is the reason why we won't do this in a responsible way is because the Senate voted to send all your money to Ukraine. I mean, they voted to send $200 billion to Ukraine. I've been all over the mountains of Appalachia when I ask people, would you rather that your senators take care of you here in Asheville or here in Pikeville, here in Appalachia, would you rather them send your money to Ukraine? I don't get anybody wanting to send a penny to Ukraine. Look, you can have all kinds of sympathy in the world for Ukraine, hostility towards Russia being the aggressor nation, but we don't have the money. We're $2 trillion in the hole. Interest this year is going to be $1 trillion. And as far as passing this, I'm willing to let it pass today. He's going to object to passing his own bill today simply because it gets paid for. I'm willing to let the bill pass, but take some of the fluff and boondoggle subsidies from the Green New Deal and put it into here. The money's sitting here. We put it into here for disasters. We help Asheville today.
Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty Roundtable Radio Talk Show.
All right, live and on your radio, Sam and James breaking it down just for you. Southern California now has the highest sales tax in the nation, 11.25%. Now, that's fine. I'm more for sales tax than most taxes. The problem that I see here is everywhere we turn, they're adding new taxes. The hidden inflation tax, brutal. Now tariffs on cars and everywhere else. Pretty soon, hey, you're not going to be able to get a new washer, dryer, or a car. You're just going to be able to get it fixed if you can get the parts. Bottom line is Trump set, they say, to announce the biggest tax increase on America in decades. Some are saying even World War II. Now, my problem with this is I support tariffs because I think they're the proper way to fund the limited scope of constitutional government. But when you just add, and you don't take away any of the unconstitutional taxes, at some point I can't go along, James. Just can't.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, if 10% is enough for God, it might even be enough for the federal government. And you're looking at, I mean, tax on property tax, income tax, sales tax,
tariffs,
all kinds of taxes.
Inflation taxes. When are they going to end, and what are we going to do? I mean, I appreciate that Donald's just talking tariffs, and I support those. They say they can bring in, $6 trillion, I guess, in 10 years or whatever, $600 billion a year or whatever it is. That's all great. I appreciate them being able to raise more money. But I can't handle it, James. I can't buy a new car now as it is, much less if they put a 25% tariff on it. What, the average car is going to go up $3-4 grand? Someone will say, well, buy a car made in America. Good luck with that. There ain't no cars made in America, buddy. Now you can say, well, wait a minute, Sam, there's auto plants all over the place. I know, but it all depends on how you define made in America. If you assemble it in America, but all the parts are made and milled and created and imported somewhere else, did you really make a car in America? So this is a very tough thing, and I don't know what people are going to do. I really don't. And my problem is, where's Congress? Even if you support the tariffs Donald Trump's putting in place, he's doing it by executive fiat. There's no authority. You can say, well, he can set the stage for it, Sam. That's right. Temporarily he can. But at some point, Congress is going to have to deliver. And they haven't delivered on a single thing that Trump's wanted except for the Lincoln-Riley Act. Other than that, I don't see a single thing they've really done that benefits me, you, your family, or anything else. They're just stuck on stupid. So as far as I understand, Mike Johnson lost a big old deal just yesterday. Didn't he just basically fail and send everybody home now, James?
I was out yesterday, so I didn't catch the news yesterday. But
check that out. I think Congress is home. They got a ton of work to do, but they're all like out on recess now, and they've stopped. And he wants to twist some arms, and he can't believe enough of the Republicans voted with the Democrats to move this along. And it's a big old to do. And I'm just thinking they're already stuck and paralyzed in the quagmire of the deep state, buddy.
Now, according to the media, they ran roughshod over Chuck Schumer in the recent funding debate, but I'm willing to bet that a lot of that is not as bad as it seems for the Democrats and not as good as it seems for conservatives. But they said, basically they broke Schumer and got the Democrats to sign on a deal that was just, purely what Trump wanted. But to your point, I mean, most of the things going on right now are executive order type level stuff or things that are going on throughout the administration but not necessarily through Congress. And Stephen Miller, though, hits on something really key with regards to whatever the issue may be. This is a very interesting, he tweeted this out on the 28th of March, just a couple of days ago, 4 days ago. There are 677 local district judges. Under current procedure, the president needs unanimous consent from all 677 to implement a major decision. If just one communist, now this is Trump's chief advisor, Stephen Miller, and I like the way he's phrasing this. If just one communist out of 677 unelected judges disagrees, the action is frozen nationwide. This is not democracy.
That's right.
This is tyranny. So this is a key issue in American
we don't
politics.
have a democracy. He's out in the weeds on his first assertion. He's clueless, and that points to part of the problem.
Well,
but look, nothing's going to happen to any of these judges, James.
Well, I mean, I know you like to pick at him, but his first point was spot on.
All I know is this: what's the difference if you're going to call America a democracy or a communist dictatorship? What's the difference, James?
Well, I'd like to have a right-wing dictatorship. That's one of the parts where you and I, it's as I like to say, going to take more than soap and water to clean up this mess at this point. But he is right about the 677 judges, and here's just the latest.
He's right about one defector. Here's the problem, though: no one's doing anything about it.
Let's see. Now that's the thing.
Right?
So
Nothing's
is this a good cop, bad cop thing? But they're all actually working for the same team. Now, see, here's the latest example. Judge Edward Chin. Bet nobody in your listening audience has ever heard the name Edward Chin before. But these 677 judges are the real ones running the country. The president's just sort of a figurehead that people get to vote for. These are the people with the real power. These judges that you've never heard of before. Judge Edward Chin blocked the deportation of 350,000 Venezuelan illegal aliens. So there you go. So how are you supposed to get anything done in a system this criminally corrupt, this broken, this out of control?
Oh, easy. You start
this
arresting
dysfunctional
people for criminal activity.
Well, something's got. Yeah, you're right.
Impeaching judges, you get Congress and the president to stand together for something. And so far, I haven't seen that the Congress has backed the president in anything. Oh, they sit behind him when Trump speaks and put thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. They send me emails begging me for money, telling you how on board Trump's plans they are. But I don't see that Congress has affected or supported Trump in anything that he's put together. Hardly at all. Nothing.
Well, and this is what's going to happen if this is the worst case scenario. I still maintain that the Democrats are so far gone with most of the country that there's a realistic scenario that exists where they're going to have a tough time competing when things realign with the new census numbers, because all these other states are growing in population and the blue states are being depopulated. But you're right that nothing substantial is going to get done.
Look, Joe Biden brought in 20 million illegals, and every one of those people will vote on the census and give the Democrats new seats at the table in the House of Representatives. They just will.
Well,
because we're not deporting them near fast enough. You'll just have all kinds of illegals tip the scales and give, California more congressional seats, or these Michigan or these liberal states more seats at the table. That's what's going to happen if we don't deport people fast enough in 2030. It's a ticking time bomb, James.
Well, that gets down to the question as to whether or not illegal aliens will actually be voting, and that's debatable. In some states, yes, in some states, no. But the situation.
Well, look, Arizona tried to say no, and the federal government sued them. Now what?
Well, this is the point. If you don't go and do something with these judges, and I mean, listen, it's all for naught. If you allow some liberal ideologue judge to strike down the president of the United States, who won the election fair and square through the vote of the people, if you allow a judge that nobody's ever heard of to have more power than the president, you've got a dysfunctional, broken system. And yes, if you do not remove these judges, if you do not impeach them, if you do not arrest them, if you do not get them out, you're going to be stuck in the quicksand. The whole administration. Surely they had anticipated this.
Because
maybe they wanted
Congress. I see Congress. I see that Mike Johnson giving the hurrah to Donald Trump, waving the palm as a cheerleader, waving the pom-poms. But then, as far as I can tell, he's slow walking everything to where nothing's getting done. For example, is Congress even in session today?
Let's ask Meta AI.
Yeah, is Congress even in session today?
Okay,
and I don't think they are. So where do you find out, right?
All right. I see days in session of the U.S. Congress at congress.gov. Let's just take a look. Okay, some are shaded and some are not. Okay, I guess the ones that are shaded mean they're in session. So today's date is April the 2nd. It only goes to March of 2025. So I guess maybe not.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So they can't even keep up on their own pages to tell you whether they're in session or not or what they're doing. Now, hold on just a minute. I'm on the phone with Mike Lee's office right now. The Capitol Switchboard just gave me a voice assistant, an AI thing, so no one's employed there.
This is something right here at Congress.gov. The calendar goes to March 31st, but there's nothing on the docs for April. I can tell you what days they worked the last 3 months.
Okay, so the senator, the House and the Senate are both in session today? And when do they start, do you know? They start at 3 p.m.? How the hell do you get anything done starting at 3 p.m.? Wow. All right. Thank you so much. You bet. Have a good day. All right. Mike Lee's office. They say they're both in session today and that they start at 3 p.m., sir.
I like those hours. I could get behind something like that. And do they work from 3 to 5 or?
I don't know. They have meetings in the morning and then they start voting at 3 p.m.
Huh.
See, and you ask, no offense, but look, how you get anything done if you start voting at 3 p.m., James? I mean, you might debate one bill if you're lucky.
Yeah, what time do they quit? Do they quit at 5 still? Do they still have to quit at quitting time, or do they just work all night at that point?
I don't know. I mean, it depends on the issue.
Now we're getting into the actual, the actual gears of government, ladies and gentlemen, right here live on your radio.
Well, as far as I can tell, I mean, I don't understand what they're even doing.
Yeah, I tell you, you got to call. You got to call the Steves, either King or Stockman. He can tell you exactly. They can tell you exactly what the schedule is, and that'd be pretty interesting. I tell you, I mean, these are details you really don't think about or ask. When do they work? How does that
look,
work?
What could Congress do the most right now that you believe could support President Trump? See, I'm not attacking Trump in this failure. I think Trump's done a lot of good. I think he's tried to lead by executive order and say, here's what I want done. Here's why I want it done. Here's what we're doing. And I support it 100% in most cases. But I look at it and I go, no one's backing the president. He's just out there in the wind by himself, shut down by Judge who knows who, A, B, C, D, E, F, over 600, whatever. And I don't see anybody really standing with the president. I mean, they're with him when it's a media op. They're like, yeah. But when it comes to really getting anything done, unless Congress codifies what Trump's doing, none of it matters a tinker's dang. James, none of it.
Well, this is the insincerity and the disingenuousness of a lot of these career sociopaths, and the one that it just comes top to mind, front and center immediately, is Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham was the biggest anti-Trump. And I know some people can be won over. Either their hearts can be won over or their political expediency can be won over. But it's certainly the latter in the case of Graham, who was just, Hillary's going to beat him like a drum. I can remember him saying that word for word. There's no way Trump can win, and we don't need him. We don't need any of his ideas. And now he's the biggest Trump sycophant, and just it's almost disgusting to watch. It's embarrassing. But that's to your point is when the cotton's high, they're going to be out there patting him on the back, and if the times get rough, they're going to be the first ones to move out and denounce him, and that's just, that's politics. That's time immemorial, but it's tough to win without sincere believers.
So, in my opinion here, I look at this thing and I say, if if Musk leaves DOGE, then what?
Well,
then, I mean, who's going to fill in for DOGE? Is it going to be a patriot?
Apparently, they've got this phalanx of 20-year-old right wingers who are sort of running that whole thing. I don't know, to the extent that Musk himself, as the CEO or the head, actually gets into the nuts and bolts of what they're doing. I mean, you certainly need a captain of any ship, but you would like to think that it'd be left in good hands and they'd have their orders and they would continue to do what they appear to be doing.
Yeah, I don't even know if they're getting done what they're appearing to do.
Well, that's a question too. Yeah,
because again, Congress has to debate the next budget, and they're pushing that back. And I'm just telling you right now, they're set up for failure. Here's the next question to make the point. We see a lot of real effort by President Trump, and I commend him for his effort. This is not criticism of Trump. He pardoned the J6ers. Couldn't be more well-deserved, well-placed, needed, etc. But there's a headline, intricately enough. Sarah McAbee wrote this article, and her question is this. Trump pardons J6ers. Now what? She says. And she goes on this big old discussion about, it's great that they're pardoned, but now they're homeless, many of them. They can't get jobs because they're now felons. And you can say, well, wait a minute, they got pardoned. They're not. Yeah, but their history and it was so in the media to where, hey, they can't get jobs. Some of them have died by cops. Some of them have committed suicide. All these different things are happening. Now what's going to happen to them? See, unless we prosecute those who put them in prison wrongfully, unless we get to the bottom of the J6 scenario, what good does it do? I mean, it's better to be out of jail, I guess, except for now you don't even get 3 squares a day, James. Now you don't even have a roof over your head. Are you worse off or better off?
Well, I don't think there's any one of them that would rather be in prison. I will say that. And to the extent, I mean, what is Trump supposed to do? Give them all jobs? You're talking about, a couple thousand people. I mean, I guess he could technically do that.
Well, the first thing you do is you start to set the narrative straight and you find out who's been lying and put those people in prison. And if you really tell the tale of truth to where the truth enough comes out to count on it, then Americans will start to say, hey, these people weren't so bad after all, and then maybe people will give them jobs and everything. The problem is the narrative is that, hey, they're a bunch of bad guys that, hey, they're just on Trump's team, so Trump did them a favor, but they're still bad guys. Until you lay out the real narrative of truth on the thing, most Americans don't really know what really even went on.
All that's true. I mean, but again, we can sit here all day and snipe at certain issues. I mean, I would ask you this, and seriously, and I would ask myself this question too. When you are the president of a country, and keep in mind, folks, you're only the president. I mean, you don't have as much power as any one of these 677
judges. And that's why I'm defending
judges.
President Trump and not attacking Trump and saying, look, the problem isn't Trump. He set the stage for a lot of great things to happen. Right?
Yes, but the execution of it, I think his ideas are spot on. And I'd even give him the benefit of the doubt is that he would truly like to see them implemented. But again, people have to remember.
I think he's proven it by the things that he's done already. He's provided the leadership.
Only the president. He's not more powerful than any one of these 677 judges that can strike down anything he does at any time. And then you've got to have Congress go along with it. So that's a lot of hurdles to jump through. And you say, well, go after these judges. Yes, he should do that. But, I mean, when you're taking okay, you move into this house, right, and this house is just falling down. I mean, it's barely standing, and that's this country. Where do you start? I mean, you can say, well, man, you need to be working on this. Well, yeah, I got to work on this and about 1,000 other things. And, it's still only been less than 3 months that he's been. I mean, it's a tough thing to know where to tackle and where to focus your energy because there's only so many hours in the day and you only have so much capital and you only have so much, any one person can do, even with, his whole entourage working with him. But you got a lot of obstacles with those judges and with Congress and the media. I mean, it's I'm sure it's a lot trickier than just being, the king of Israel, or no, I'm talking about biblical kings where you just had absolute authority and absolute monarchy, and you could really get stuff done. You could really get stuff done then, but he's not that.
Anyway, that's why I'm not criticizing Trump. I get that he's only got so much ability, so much capital, so much, but the reason I bring this up isn't really to criticize. I know it sounds like I'm just criticizing and, hey, you're like, hey, Sam, what alternatives do you got? They're fair questions and fair points. The reason I bring this up is because I think we the people and Congress have a real short, open window of opportunity right now. And Trump has provided tremendous leadership. He said, look, let's create a DOGE that digs in and finds out where the waste is, and then let's get rid of it. Well, Congress has got a partner to get that done, okay? But what Mike Johnson said is, hey, let's go ahead and pass the big old beautiful budget. We'll worry about DOGE later. In my opinion, if we the people allow the Speaker of the House to stay there with that kind of mentality, you're done. If 10 million people said, you know what, we want that Speaker ousted. He's off his rock, crazy, nuts. We're not going to do that. I can't believe he, passed the budget, whatever, continuing resolution at Christmas time. And then, hey, literally 2 months later, passed it again, giving him 6 months. Now he's bogged down and trying to pass a big, beautiful bill, which is going to fail again. Okay, this guy's a failure. And until you start taking action of impeaching and prosecuting these judges for their criminal acts from the bench, until you stop these congressional bureaucrats, hey, they're going to start work at 3 p.m. today. Okay, until you, it's so dysfunctional, until we the people demand accountability. Look, poor Donald is hanging out there in the breeze, and he's going to get slaughtered Not because his ideas are bad, not because he won't stand up, because we the people don't get enough behind him to count. If it was the liberals, they'd be behind their guy big time. The conservatives are like, yeah, I'm going to watch March Madness, and Donald, you go, 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 baby. And that's it. And I'm telling you right now, you will not restore the republic. Things are just going to get worse under that model, James. And until the people get less comfortable, in other words, maybe lose your TV or something, hey, no one's going to care, James. And that's really the problem we've got. So this is not an attack on President Trump. This is an open window of opportunity that I'm begging the American people to capitalize on.
Yeah, that's right. But that's been the case throughout history until people get uncomfortable. What is the old slogan? I'll butcher it. Hard time. You know what I'm talking about, I guess. Hard times make good men make easy times easy. You know the whole cycle. But we're in this cycle where everybody's so comfortable, they're not going to do the things that need to be done. You're not going to take risk. You're not going to want to get out of your comfort zone. Everything's relatively good. And so what we need to do about the J6ers is we need Kash Patel and others to demand accountability. You know what? We need to declassify this information. We need to get to the bottom of it. We need to find out, what really happened and set the record straight to where these J6ers can have honor again. But right now they're just a bunch of bad guy, evil felons, pardoned by the greatest felon of them all, right? That's all we've got. Unless you get the truth out there, folks, who writes the history, James? The winners.
And so far, they've got the history controlled, right?
That's right.
So if we want to be winners, we better bring out the true history and jettison. Okay, they wrote the false history about Trump's dossier lies, and they wrote the history for a while. But now we've busted that, and I think the history's straightened out. Trump did not collude with the Russians. That was a big old lie, psyop from the Democrats. Okay? I'm not into Republican and Democratic politics, but I am saying, hey, we righted the wrong on that and got the truth out now. Now I don't think anybody with a straight face can really tie Donald to that dossier. Okay? However, it cost us a ton of money, and they wrote the history for a while. We need to change the history on this J6th. We need to change the history on some of these tax issues. We need to, right? But until we the people push, nothing's going to happen. Congress is going to start at 3 p.m. Imagine that in an emergency. They've been given the best win of their lives, and they promised all this stuff with Trump, and they're literally starting voting at 3 p.m.? What are they even going to vote on at 3 p.m.? Like the bags of chips are too small in the congressional cafeteria, and instead of 8-ounce chips, we're going to have 10-ounce bags of chips because, by golly, we got less, nuts in our candy bar, says Joe. I mean, is that
we actually interviewed on the political cesspool before he died Walter Jones, who was actually a great congressman from North Carolina, and when he came on the show, he was opposing foreign interventionism and the Iraq War and things like that. But at first, he was all for it, and he was the one leading the charge to rename the fries in the cafeteria the Freedom Fries instead of the French fries because the French weren't going along with it. So they do get bogged down into some of that stuff sometimes. That's for sure.
Republicans, I can't remember which one did what, but one of them voted salsa to be considered a health food at the school lunches, and then the other group didn't want to be undone, so they voted ketchup to be the case. I think it was the Republicans on salsa and the Democrats did ketchup, to where those are basically, hey, if you put that on your burger or on your fries or whatever, then you're adding healthy because, ketchup, tomatoes, and, salsas, tomatoes. So you're bringing in, part of the 4 food groups and all this kind of stuff. And there's nothing but clown show stuff. Well, the same thing's happening with the budget now. They're talking about playing games with increased budgets. They're not really planning on decreasing anything.
Well, time will tell. Certainly, if you're going out on a limb and saying that you have decades and even, I guess, centuries here in the American experiment to back you up, but we'll see. I mean, because again, we're still very early. What would you say would be
the single most thing Congress could do to support their president?
I mean, immigration, I guess, would be his biggest signature issue. I mean, we could get into. I mean, what would you do necessarily?
Here's the good news about the border. They did pass the Lincoln-Riley Act, which was a start. You got to give them some credit for that. As far as I understand, Florida wants to be the state backing President Trump on the illegal immigration the most. Florida sheriff's deputies make feds' jobs easier by catching illegal aliens by the truckful. That's great news. So we're gaining some ground on that. According to Tom Holman and others, we have less people coming into the United States than we've ever had before. In other words, March sees another record low of illegal border crossing in Trump's second term. Mike LaChance, the Gateway pundit, with that one. So there is some progress. Let's come back and talk a little bit more about some of that progress. We've got a lot to go, and I don't mean to be negative. What I do mean to say is we've got a very narrow window. We, the people, better not be spectators.